Hi guys, it's Dr. Mohammad Usman, and today we will be talking about human resource recruitment and selection process. Previously, we have talked about different human resource processes, and we have also talked about the advantages and disadvantages of human resource planning, its steps, and how we can use the human resource planning in our organization to improve and reach the organization goals. So today we will be talking about the recruitment and selection process. So starting from the basics of the recruitment process, as we know that when an organization has to hire a person, he has to fill up a ad, and they have to send that ad in the newspaper or email or online. Against that ad, they get a number of applications, and for that they have to perform the recruitment and attracting different peoples who have applied for that job. So the basic purpose of the recruitment is to hire new employees through the overall human resource process, and this is called the recruitment process. So overall, before the initiating the recruitment process, we know that the employee has to send his resume through the email or through the given address. So but for the HR, the process is different. The HR is first has to review the skill sets and scope of that job, which have to be given to the different employee, and the employee which has to perform that job. So basically, the first of all, HR should be clear about the scope and the skill set that are required for the certain job or position. Then HR should review the job specification and job description before hiring any candidate. So basically, they need to compare every resume with the job description and job specification. And they should also perform evaluation that if the person don't have any skill set related, still that person is needed to hire on the specific position or not. Also, what are the compensation to the different positions, and what will be the analysis of impact of the hiring on the budget of the organization. As we know that human resources have to manage the budget of the organization, as well as they have to manage the resources of the organization. So overall recruitment process need to be monitor all the resources those are required by the organization. So some factors that govern the recruitment process are internal and external factors. Internal factors are basically the similar one: recruitment policy, human resource planning, size of the organization, cost, growth and expansion. Other than that, resources available to the human resource team, number of people need to be hired, and the clarity of the human resource team for hiring the employees and managing those employees. So basically, after the internal factors, the external factors, as we have known that these are supply and demand. The demand is the number of the people required by the organization, and supply is the either the number of people are available in the market or not. Then another factor is that the unemployment rate. If an unemployment rate is high, then you will get a number of applications. If it is low, then you will get a low number of applications. So basically, it depends on developed and undeveloped countries, that if you have a greater unemployment rate, then you might have many CVs and resumes that are not related for your specific job. Then how will you categorize and select those resume and filter them out? Then other than that, the labor market has an impact: the political situation of the organization, the environment, the city, the location of the position, the timing of the position, the image of the organization. So basically everything matters when we are hiring for any organization. And similarly, like if an organization is good, they will be getting a lot of resume for the recruitment and selection process, and they will be able to attract more pool of candidates, and they can hire good people. But if the image is not good and no one knows the organization, then there will be less resume, and they have to select to them. And even most of the time, if these factors are not considered, the human resource process totally fails and the resources are wasted. So depending on the internal and external factors, similarly, like we have sources of requirement. These are the internal and external. So internal are the current employee which has to be promoted on a certain position, references from the present employee, data bank of the former applicants who have applied for the job, retired employee or former employee. So internal recruitment is easy than the external recruitment. External recruitment cost a lot of amount for the advertisement. Then we have to go to the employment agencies. Then we can attract some temporary help from other people, executive recruitment, referrals and walk-ins. Then we can go for college recruitment, company's website, free and paying services, website services. Other than that, telephonic interviews, Skype interviews. And depending if the number of persons are required not in the local organization or local city or geographic location, then we have to go for the overseas applicant. And when we go for the overseas applicant, then we are going to have a more cost involved in the recruitment process. So when we have done the recruitment process, we go to the selection of different candidates. The selection of candidates is differentiating between the applicants in order to identify those people who are good for that job. So basically the selection will be the right combination of the job specification and job description that will include the experience, education, the attitude, the creativity, the tools he is used, the previous work experience, the stability of the workforce, and it will also play a large role in the bringing the management strategies and planning to the future and growth of the organization. So selection is a very important process for the organization, because without the selection process the organization will not be able to select the right candidate. In the selection process, we will be also doing the initial screening and filtering out the candidates which are not related to our job or the job position. So basically selection is the core step after the recruitment, when we have gotten a number of applications and we have to find out which candidate is required and which candidate is not related to our job position. But there are also factors which affect, like the internal and external factors that govern the recruitment process. Similarly, like we have external and external factors that affect the selection process. So basically, for first of all we will talk about the external environment. It is similar like in the recruitment process we have supply and demand for the candidates, and for selection we also have supply and demand. So if we have a supply and demand equal and balanced on for the specific skill, then we will be able to hire a specific candidate. Otherwise we have to train or go for the another market. Similar like the unemployment rate is very important. If the job has very less unemployment rate in the market, then we will be not able to hire the exact candidate, or we will be having a very less number of applications for filtering out. So we have to go with the less number of application or other cancel the process. Then legal and political considerations are very important, that what legal or political considerations are required by the employer or the organization. Then company image is very important in the selection process. Even we go through the recruitment process and we get very huge number of resumes, but when the people know about the image of the company, they usually don't go into the selection process or don't move further. So then after the external environment, we go for the internal environment. The company policy is very important. If a company policy don't give the NOC to different employees or different people, then the employees will not be doing job for that organization unless they have very work pressure or they don't have job in the market. Similar like the human resource planning also affect the selection process. If human resource planning is not good, then they will not be able to select and attract the required candidates. And then cost of hiring. If the organization don't have the resources, then they will go for the charging different candidates for sending the application. So most of the time when we see that different organization ask you for paying a certain number of amount for the form or the some other thing, then you should be knowing that this organization is going to eat you up, because they don't have the internal resources for the human resources. And also many organizations usually do this all the time. They hire and give ads and don't hire the people according to that job specification. They basically send the people the forms and they collect the money, and then they hire 10 out of 10,000. So basically they generate the money through all this procedure, and they play with the candidate feeling. So this is not a good thing, and the organization should avoid this one. So when we talk about further with the process of the selection, we have the plenary interview, which will be the initial interview. Then there might be selection test. It is not necessary that all the candidates have to give the selection test. It depends on the organization. Then we have the employment interview and reference and backgrounds. Then we check about the selection decision with the other committee or teams. Then there is medical or examination. If all these things are cleared, then the candidate go toward the job offer. If there is anything that is not related to the candidate or not good for the organization, then the candidate is rejected through any of these above processes. If the candidate passes all of these, then he goes for the job offer, and then the employment contract is signed and the evaluation is done for the appraisal or performance. So basically this is the overall process for the initial selection process. And then we will be talking about further the test concepts, which are very important for the organization and which are very common nowadays. So basically when we are talking about the selection process, the testing concepts are very important nowadays. Many organizations perform this, and they go for the personality trait test, ability test, aptitude tests, or interest test. and most of the time many organizations are nowadays conducting the psychological test and the personality trait test due to the recent terrorism in the organizations and in different countries. So it is very important for the organization to at least conduct a personality or a psychological test for different candidates to know them what they are doing with their current job and what they are thinking to do with the next job. So there are many types of tests. Some of them I will describe over here. One is the Thomas profiling. Basically it is used for the identification of behavior requirement for the job, and most of the critical jobs have these Thomas profiling tests done all the time. Then we have the Mbti, which is used for the understanding of the personality types. There are also similar personality type tests which tell you a person is related to person traits and what the person is thinking about himself or what is his career trait. But basically these tests are not that much accurate. The person can answer these questions in nervousness or in different tension position or pressure work position. So you cannot just simply depend on these tests. These are just 10% to the weightage of the organization jobs. Then there is other PAPI, which is behavior in workplace. Then there is 16PF, measuring the personality factors. SUFA is locus of control. So many organizations use these tests, and they have also developed their own test for conducting different or knowing about the employee more and more, and which is very important for the organization. So I will also suggest that you go through a personality test for all the employees which are going to be hired at your organization. So further, when the selection tests are completed, we go for the interviews, and interviews are the core of the organization. When we have done the selection, we call the people to know them, to meet them from face to face. So it can be formal or informal conversation, but basically all the interviews are formal, in-depth conversation conducted to evaluate different applicants and know about them in a better detail. It is also used to know the skills by that person, the education, and to know the knowledge that person has, and also it is to know the person behavior aspects and what he speaks during the interview and how he acts during the interview to certain questions. So interview is a very important, and it is a very good learning experience. So I usually suggest every other person that even that job is not related to you and you are welcome for the interview, then go for the interview even you are not going to do that job, because every interview will give you a learning experience. But it is not good for the HR if they finalize a candidate which is not going to be join their organization. So basically for that, organizations have to prepare for the interviews to avoid the absence of reliability, lack of validity, and the biasness. So the abundant research exists that reliability and validity of the selection interview are higher when the interview is structured. So an interview plan is strongly recommended, and prior to developing the interview plan, it should be clear that you know the job descriptions and job requirement and job specification and stick to them throughout the hiring process. It should not be that you hire through reference and you overcome the different candidates and you hire the person internally to the organization after giving the ad external to the organization. So it is a very bad practice. So after you have gone for the interview process, there are different types of interview. We have usually gone through them, and you might have encountered some of them. I will start from one of them is one-to-one interview. Basically it is with the head of the organization or the basic HR manager, and there is two participants, one is you and one is the interviewer, and they just ask simple questions to know about the initial about the candidates or your initial behavior or what are your expectations. Basically most of the time this one-to-one interview is nowadays in form of Skype or on email interviews. When the other type of the interview, the sequential interview, when we have passed the number one interview, it involves series of interviews. Basically in bigger jobs and sensitive jobs, we have a number of sequential interviews which also involve the physical interviews as well as practical interviews as well as aptitude tests and many other tests which are going to be done from room to room. And some other famous interviews which are done by the organization are the panel interview, in which two or more interviews are over there which ask you similar questions. Usually in many hiring positions of the academic and organization positions, most of the organization follow this because they need to know have multiple outputs and multiple suggestions by different interviewer people who are involved in that process. So to make them unbiased or make them totally based, the panel interview is a very good thing for the organization. So these are just the interview types, and we have gone through the selection, recruitment and interview process of the organization. This video was up to here. If you like this video, do visit my channel and subscribe to it. And if you want any concept to be taught in Urdu and English, please request in comments and I will be happy to make it for you. And as previously told, you can get training certificate for all our channel videos, and it is the process over here. And you can also go for the video which is given on my YouTube channel explaining all these steps. So what you are waiting for? Go today to my YouTube channel and like and subscribe to it.